Frank Gehry visits us again. He was recently selected to receive the 1999 American Institute of Architects Gold Medal. It is an honor that puts him in the company of Frank Lloyd Wright, Le Corbusier, and Thomas Jefferson. He's built a reputation for his revolutionary designs and innovative use of materials and technology. His recent completion of the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, Spain, has affected the way people think about architecture. Philip Johnson has called it the most important building of the 20th century. I am pleased to have my friend Frank Gehry back on this program. Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations, too. AIA's gold medal.
I never thought I'd get that one. I thought I would be too weird for these guys.
Well, I want to hear about that, because that's exactly what I thought you'd think.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, you know, you build up all these fantasies and phantoms about people. Yeah. And the AIA, mostly, when I've gone to their meetings, have been about how do you get clients and business and technical stuff and, you know, sort of boring. And they, even though they have this wonderful awards program and this wonderful gold medal, you never think of yourself as being looked at by them somehow. I don't know what it is.
You thought that they wouldn't appreciate what you were about.
And I heard that they didn't. That, you know, I was sort of left field, the maverick, the person that they thought wasn't doing real architecture. For instance, I hear that my architecture isn't socially responsible because it's da-da-da-da. What
does da-da-da-da mean?
Just, you know, shapes that look like they're not solving the problems of the poor and the needy and stuff like that. When, of course, I'm as idealistic and as socially involved as anybody, as they are. And when I heard that, of course, you're up for it 2 or 3 times before you get it. So the first time I played along with it.
And what, you thought maybe I could be the one?
Yeah. And the second time I was a little skeptical and I didn't want to. And the third time I said I'm not going to cooperate at all with these guys. I made them do it all themselves. I was really
In other words, you sent them nothing, you provided nothing,
was
you
nothing.
Just said, you know.
I was nasty.
Oh. Sorry now, aren't you?
Yes. And apologetic.
Accept Mr. Gehry's apology tonight on this program to all you voting members of the AIA.
Yeah. But it was like, somebody asked me what it's like, and it was like finding out an older brother really loved you all the time. That's what it felt like.
You have never, is it fair to say, felt understood, appreciated, even accepted by your fellow architects? Any of that true? Not in your own mind that you didn't understand the importance of what you were doing, but that you questioned whether other people understood or misunderstood.
When I started in practice in California in 62, 61, 62, my first works drew a lot of criticism from my colleagues in the architecture, and it drew a lot of praise from the artists. So I hung out with the artists.
Right, Frank Stella and the like.
I went where they liked me. If you're not with the girl you like the girl you're with, or something. Anyway.
Or better than that, you like to hang out with people who like you.
Right, and I learned a lot from them, and the language was. So I was an outsider. I guess I was born an outsider, being Jewish in Canada, in a town where there were very few Jewish families. You grew up feeling like an outsider, and I suppose that pattern exists in my life, whether I like it or not, and hangs on. So I've always felt, whether it's true or not, and it's not true, but I've always felt like the outsider.
Has it influenced your architecture?
It's given me a kind of freedom that I didn't have to please them, whoever them was, that I could just work with, with what I had to do. I mean, I don't believe you contrive to do something. You do what comes to you, what you feel and what you do and respond, and it's kind of inevitable. So I just kept going and doing it, and it came out pretty good.
How has Bilbao changed your life?
a lot of attention that is distracting. I love it. It's when everybody likes you. But it is distracting, and I'm trying to clear the way so I can work. I didn't expect Bilbao to be such a hit.
Why not?
I'm Jewish. I'm guilty. I don't know. You never expect anything. It was a miracle working with the likes of Krenz.
Right. And Krenz from the Guggenheim.
Yeah, and the Basque people, who are incredible, wonderful people. You met some of them. They're straight arrow. They're very direct. They tell you what they want. This was a big business decision of their part to re-energize a city, a town, a country, the Basque country.
You have said that you still see the little mistakes when you visit Bilbao.
But I think any artist, anybody that does anything,
filmmaker.
create any filmmaker, anybody, you see it too when you see your program afterwards.
Oh God, painfully so. Yeah.
And the other people don't see it or don't care about it as much as you do. Don't know
because they don't know what you know.
Yeah,
they don't know what the potential.
For instance, I know that when certain material, when the titanium comes in through the window and hits the plaster wall, past the mullions, it's very messy. And I knew it was going to be. I let it happen. Now, recently I was in a Frank Lloyd Wright house, and I saw that Wright brought the stone, the wood, right into the stone and carved the wood around the stone, which is really hokey. But he, it's sort of not so fussy about those kind of details. Just sort of the big picture was more important. And
Corbusier is your favorite architect, not Frank Lloyd Wright.
Corbusier, yes. Because he was a painter. He worked his stuff out through painting, something I've never dared to do. I've never dared to touch the canvas, but I revere painters. Painting is Mount Everest. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they... It's kind of a magic.
What painter has influenced you more than any other? I mean, I know you're friends with Frank Stella, correct?
Yes, and Rauschenberg.
And Bob Rauschenberg.
And Jasper.
Jasper Johns.
I've known them all for quite a while.
I think can count them as friends.
Yes.
And how do they influence your architecture?
Well, when I started out, I was trying to make buildings that were perfect, all the details. I was trained that way. And I couldn't, because these were cheap office remodels and stuff like that. And Jasper and Rauschenberg and Don Judd and all these people were making paintings out of what the world thought was junk, but they were making beautiful art. And it occurred to me that, why am I being so fussy? Why don't I just go the other way? It's much easier to be optimistic about the craft or lack of craft that was available, and use it positively. Which is the way I feel about cities too. I feel that one of the things we do wrong with cities, we try to make them into something they aren't. We try to Prince Charles them, 19th century. You can't do that. If we look at them as they are with all the warts and stuff, there is an energy in the city. There is a kind of a reality, and you can use it. You can.
Now, what does that mean?
You can use the collision of thought. If you go down the street and you see Pay's building next to Phillips' building or whatever, they're not so in tune. There's a rupture. There's a collision. And that's interesting. Why do people look at car wrecks? I don't know why I brought that up, but
why are they fascinated by car wrecks?
Yeah, and I think that there's a fascination in these collisions, just as there's a fascination in collision of thought. You have forums with people of different persuasions talking and yelling at each other, and it's exciting and interesting. I think in architecture it is too, and that's the American city of today is built on pluralistic thought,
coming together of a lot of odd parts.
A lot of odd parts.
Yeah.
And there's an excitement about it.
Explain to me the relationship between you and Philip Johnson, a friend of this broadcast as well.
Philip, I wanted to meet Philip for many years in the 60s because he was the only architect around that was collecting art, that knew the artists I liked. And I used to ask Jasper or whoever, I'd say, you know Philip, please introduce me to him. They would say, no, no, no. When you're ready, it'll happen. So sooner or later, I did the Ron Davis house, and Philip heard about it and came out and visited, and we struck up a dialogue. I went to visit him then, and we became friends. And he is so smart and so quick and so willing to just say what he thinks. He doesn't pull his punches. I found that very refreshing, and in the end, a good friend. There aren't many people that'll tell you what they really think, and he does it.
Roll tape. This is a trip that Mr. Gehry and Mr. Johnson and I took back to Bilbao with Steve Wynn, a friend of mine, back in when? October, no, December? When was it?
Yeah, something like that.
Somewhere in the fall of 1998. Take a look.
Too bad there's no words. Architecture is not about words. It's about tears and love. Funny thing about that. Yeah. I knew that. You knew back time very well.
About tears and love.
I get the same feeling in the neighbor for Charles Cathedral.
Same thing in the heart.
Same tears.
It overwhelms because of its...
It's called beauty.
That's what makes him interesting, too. There's a sense of his passionate interest
he loves
in
architecture.
Architecture. And here, at a moment, he's overcome by what I said to him, what is it? And he just said, it's the beauty of the thing.
Yeah. He loves architecture. He loves architects. He's the only living architect that has consistently supported the succeeding generations.
Right.
He goes out of his way to do that. And, you know, some people say, well, it's self-serving. Well, he does it way beyond self-serving. It's way beyond that. Mm-hmm. He really means it. And he may not even like the work, but he'll support it just if it's interesting and exciting. So there's nobody like him.
Okay, we got to take a look at some stills. We'll come to Bilbao in just a second. This is a Steve's residence. This was when?
1959.
59. What's the significance of this?
Well, it's the first house I ever did on my own. I was working and did it moonlighting, and it's in Brentwood. It's still there. I think it
looks like a nice site.
It is a beautiful site. It overlooks the freeway. Yeah. The San Diego freeway. The problem is, not the problem. This grew out of Frank Lloyd Wright and Harwell Harris and people like that. Those were my early beginnings. Those were my early heroes.
Right.
I came to Corbusier later.
Came to appreciate and admire and love. Okay. Yeah. Next tape is your own residence in Santa Monica. This design, 1978, sort of explain this, because
that was while it was under construction.
It's been changed before.
It was under construction, and it doesn't have the chain link sculpture above it. But I bought an old house and wrapped it with a new house.
Right.
And played off. So you see the old house inside. I was interested in.
All right. Next slide.
Prague.
Right.
Fred and Ginger, they call it.
I know.
The reason
dancing together.
The reason it's pinched in on the left, the glass piece is pinched in, is the guy's balcony in the building next door had a view of the castle, and I pinched it in so he could retain his view.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's why. And it started to look like a female figure.
Yeah.
And I called it Ginger one day, and it stuck.
Okay, next slide.
Vitra.
Right.
It's a little furniture museum in Weil am Rhein near Basel. This was my first building in Europe. And we're now adding to it. We're doubling the size of it. That was the first time I played with Oldenburg, too.
Yeah.
He was there first, in this case.
Bilbao is the culmination for you of what? In terms of
I don't see it as a culmination
of anything.
Of anything. No.
What is it then?
It's, I hope I'm I don't know how long I'm going to last at it.
I don't mean it culmination, but I mean, does it represent the coming together of all that you were experimenting with in terms of,
yes.
This is the American Center, I guess. Is that what that is?
Yes.
The American Center in Paris. But it's the coming together of the best expression of things that you've been doing and the use of technology.
Right.
I mean, you did things at Bilbao you couldn't have done 10 years ago, probably.
Without the computer.
Without the computer.
Yeah.
You were able to let your imagination go wilder than it had ever been before.
Well, I'd played with double curved shapes on some of these earlier buildings, and these were not done with the computer, and I had trouble defining them.
Right.
And as a result, when you have trouble defining things like this, it results in a cost implication with the contractor. So Bilbao was the first time I got it together where I could so clarify what I wanted to 7 decimal points of accuracy with the computer that the contractor wasn't at risk. They knew what they were doing, and we were able to control the cost very well and use pretty difficult shapes.
What, in your judgment, not whether Bilbao is one of them or any other building is one of them, ought to be the test for a great architectural masterpiece?
First, for me, is if people like it, if people enjoy it, if people like being there, are comfortable in it. If it also is instructive, it's emotionally appealing, it gives some kind of, gives something to you. It's an experience, and it's an uplifting experience. It makes, and you learn something from it. It's not just the same old thing. It's got, there is a bit of discomfort because it takes a while to get used to it, like when you read a new book by a new author or you see a new painting that turns out to be great later. There's this discomfort. I have it all the time when I see new artists' work. And
that's good. And
I
that
think
ought to be the essence of...
I think it turns, if the thing turns out in the end to be something you like and enjoy.
Man, you must have fell in love with Jackson Pollock when the first time you saw him. Huh?
I did.
You did?
Yeah. No, at first it was funny at first, I remember. And then it took a while. It's like everything else.
But it was jarring and funny and different,
funny,
and but that's one of the tests for you.
Right. I think important, too, is that how it fits into the city, what it does as a neighbor to the other buildings, without copying the other buildings. I think so much of what's going on now, especially in Berlin, where they're trying desperately to build a new city, and half of them want to build it in the 19th century, and they're very tasteful people, the Germans, and a lot of them want to go forward, but there's this conflict. And what I was trying to do in Bilbao was to build something that did fit in the city, that did take in the bridge, take in the river, take in the 19th century, and still had its own persona while doing it. It's like being a good neighbor, people. Even though you can be a tough person, you can be a whatever, there's certain neighborliness, and I look at it that way in the building.
Functionality comes in where? From
the beginning. Functionality is ephemeral. Functional for what? Like beauty in the eye of the beholder. But there is usually a program. In the case of Bilbao, there was a X number of square feet for galleries and so on. There's usually a brief, and that's discussed with the client in great detail. If I know something about the subject, like the art museum, where I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, I can contribute to it. Where it's a laboratory building for an oncology center, and I don't know enough to argue with them, I listen and try to express as best I can what they're looking for. In the case early on, the case of the law school asked for symbolism. They asked for something. They were in a bad part of town. They wanted a building that evoked the law. So, but I think functional is every building undergoes changes. From the first moment it's finished, it's obsolete. You know, the users have already discovered new things they want to do.
Are you as excited about the challenge today as you've ever been?
Yes, very much. Because I have a freedom now that I didn't have. People come to me for something, and it's a lot easier. They become teammates a lot quicker. They become partners, and we work together, and we become better teammates quicker because they know what I'm up to, and I spend a lot of time with the models, bringing them into the process. So by the time a building is done, the clients are on board.
I also think probably with someone like you now, in terms of where you are, there is something about this idea that they have some understanding of the potential of the journey. And that's an exciting journey.
And they want it. The people that come to me now want to go on that journey. And they're looking for that because Bilbao paid for itself in a year. So there's an economic impact. And when you build a building, you want it to be usable. So there is a...
You'd be surprised how many, I'm flattering you too much, but you'd be surprised at how many
I'm
people...
very insecure still, Charlie. Don't worry about it.
I know. You'd be surprised how many people I know still say, you know, you've got to go see Bilbao. It's almost like if you're anywhere near Spain,
right,
you got to go see Bilbao. Yeah. It's that significant.
Yeah, people stop me on the street.
Yeah, they want to see it. Either they've just seen it, they say to somebody, you got to go see it.
It's miraculous.
If you want to know more about Frank Gehry, there is a book just out in the last couple of months called Franco Gehry, The Complete Works. You'll get a sense of, he didn't come here to promote this, but I have it. So it'll give you more a sense of the evolution of art architect, considered by many to be, if not the best, one of our best working today. Thank you, my friend. Great to see you. Frank Gehry, thank you for joining us. See you next time.